Okay, thank you very much, guys. So let me do a very short introduction of what I do, who am I, and stuff like that. My name is Paddy Tan, Singaporean, based in Singapore. Even though we have office under Blackstone, we do have office in Singapore as headquarters, also in KL, Malaysia, Bangkok, Thailand, and also in Taiwan. We are part of the, we also actually owns a few other sibling companies also, with some offices in Hong Kong, China, even Korea, and a couple of other places. But today the focus here is actually under this startupstorm.asia. Do drop by on the site, as we always upload quite a few content. It's a subscription-based service, but however, if you sign up, we actually provide you trial. So the fee is actually very low. Objective is actually quite straightforward, is to focus a lot more on the startups as much as we can to help companies, to prepare themselves and even to scale their business. Okay, so first and foremost, today's topic is how to run a startup. So, so a very quick introduction of myself. Well, thanks to the Zoom filter, so I probably look a bit younger, but actually I'm coming to almost to 50 years old. Okay, so when we talk about running a startup, I think one of the biggest challenges here is that, we get very excited when you have a fantastic idea, a brand new idea, and you want to run a business. But running a startup is different from running an SME. It's different from running or even when you're running a department or running a division. Because when you're running a startup, the risk is actually multiplier. It's very, very high. Why? Because you may have a great idea, you may be very passionate about it, but how do you actually run a startup? Because when you're talking about running a startup, if let's say, especially if you're the founder, this means that you are not just planning to run alone. Okay, you also have to take care of people, the kind of people that you need to hire, the kind of people that are going to run along with you, the kind of people that you want to partner with, the kind of people that you want to sell to. And also at the same time, when you're running a startup, you also need to take care of what kind of product are you going to sell? Does the product actually works? Let's say, for example, country like Malaysia is so big, the product that you're selling in, let's say, KL versus the product that you're selling in Kedah or versus the product that you're selling in Penang. It may be the same product, but pricing may be different. Positioning may be different. Okay, why? Because there may be a different cost of living, different acceptance level. So there can be a lot of things that we need to take care. And then another thing that we need to take care of is also process. Okay, so for example, when we talk about process, how do you really sell? Do you want to, if you are not quite sure on exactly how to sell the certain products in a certain country, certain county, certain states, you may actually get yourself into a lot of problems. So which is why it's always important that when you're running a startup, focus on three things: people, product, and process. So today we are going to cover an overview of what they are. Okay, so first and foremost, the agenda. There's a key areas of running a startup. What are the challenges in running a startup? And of course, the rewards of running a startup. Okay, so now take a look at this particular screen. When we talk about key areas of running a startup, so if you look at it, it seems like a linear. Okay, it seems so straightforward. Like, okay, Paddy, you're talking about someone with an idea, come up with an idea, develop a product, put a few people into team building, and then you grow. It's not so straightforward. Okay, but the process is similar. But it's just that if you look at this as a straight line, okay, it is not. But for illustration purposes, we can't be drawing lines all over the place. Because the thing is, there are many ways of getting from point A to point B to point C to point D. When we talk about the ideations, what is the ideations? When we talk about product development, what is product development? And ideation itself, which I will go through the next few slides, I can briefly run it through with you. Okay, when we talk about ideations, you take it as it is something that you get very excited with, maybe because of the data or information that you had already collected. So some of the clientele that we have, or even some of the students, when we run through our workshops, which are Startup Storm, we'll be running quite a lot of workshops. We'll be running quite a lot of private workshops. These are not free ones. Unfortunately, these are paid ones. The first question that I always ask some of the founders is that, well, there are always tons of ideas. There are always a million things that you can get very excited with. But the problem is that how do you know which one do you actually manage? Which one is actually worth your time? Okay, one of the most simplest way that I always do, in fact, even though I had exited a couple of times of my different startups, I still get excited with interesting ideas. So how do I so-called tell myself, you don't get overexcited, don't get overstimulated. So this also means that whenever a great idea comes in, if I'm excited about it and I think about it, and then if I were to go to bed, okay, I go to bed with it. If after waking up or maybe 24 hours later, if I'm still excited about it, I will probably look into it deeper. Okay, why do I say that? I'm not saying that this is applicable to everybody, but what I'm trying to say here is that there can be tens of thousands of ideas that come to us, okay, anytime in different locations, in different timing. You may be watching a movie, you get inspired with certain ideas, maybe queuing up to buy food, and then you get a great idea. But the thing is that being idea, there are so many opportunities that we look at, but how do you actually put in the resources? Because like every one of us, we only have 24 hours. And not everyone has a couple of dollars sitting around just to throw it into planning out ideas. It doesn't work this way. So to me, if it's something interesting, I'll think about it. And if I go and sleep over it, okay, and then the next day, if I wake up, I can still remember it vividly and still get me very excited about it, I will pursue it a bit further. But it doesn't mean that I will definitely pursue it all the way. Because why? An idea is an idea, but as you need to move on to the next level, you have to understand an idea that you can you actually formulate into a product that somebody will want to buy. If nobody wants to buy, then honestly, it is as good as it's just an idea. Okay. And then now, if you want to have an idea, you have to have a product, means that you need to have people to build. Some of us are smart, but not all of us are smart enough to run a startup alone. Okay. Whereas even so, those solopreneur, it has been common, but it is not if you are going to talk about producing a product that somebody wants to buy. So this is where you need to get the right people to come in. And if you don't get the right people to come in, it is almost impossible. Let's say, for example, you may be very good in marketing. Being very good in marketing, but if you don't have a great product to sell, you can't. And if you have a lousy product and you're very good in marketing, you may be able to sell, but it may not be sustainable. Okay. And also, if you're a marketing guy, but you don't have a technical knowledge, then how are you going to produce a product? So this is also the whole entire thing that you always have to know what to do when you're running a startup. And sad to say, a lot of people always think about growing the company. The question here that you have to ask yourself is, when you talk about growing the company, are you talking about growing the people, growing the product? Personally, I could say a company will only grow when you're able to sell. If you're not able to sell something, the company will not be able to grow. Why? Somebody has to give you the money. Okay, you may say, hey, Paddy, how about getting investors? Sure, investors putting in money is not buying. Okay, you're not selling any product, you're selling shares to them. So when we're talking about growth, we are talking about the growth of the company where there is actually an actual sales, meaning someone that is not related to you, see your product, see your services, and willing to pay you money. So only when that happens, you can keep coming out with different variations of the product. So that's what we call growth. Okay, so now let me jump into the ideation portion. Okay, first and foremost, I know the question sounds very simple, and it should not be something that you should just answer it easily, because if it's a simple question with a simple answer, then there's a most likely whatever that you're trying to solve is actually probably not justifiable enough for you to start a company. Okay, what is the problem that you're passionate to solve? Okay, I know that for those who follow me, you probably follow me on social medias or follow me on on the LinkedIn or whatsoever. I'm quite a straightforward guy, quite a straight talker. If it is a problem that you're passionate to solve, then you also have to be very realistic. Passion can only give you so much. But are you passionate enough that you can identify the problem and then yet have the solutions and have people in between willing to pay? If it's a problem that's not big enough, nobody is willing to pay. If it's a problem that is small, some people don't even see it as a problem. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, like now we are on the end of the year. So every now and then there's always a huge heavy rains, like just like now. Now I'm actually in office, but well, interestingly, outside it's all heavy rain. So now here's the thing: you are in a hurry. You want to go from point A to point B. You didn't bring an umbrella. Okay, and this meeting is very, very important. Probably it's a meeting that probably could change your life. Maybe it's a wedding, maybe it's a divorce, Maybe you're trying to sign a $1 million, $2 million, $10 million deal, but it's raining. And without an umbrella, you will probably be wet, you will probably be delayed. So is this a problem that is big enough? If it is a problem that is big enough for you to solve, you as an individual, you'll probably be willing to pay money, okay, to get a Grab, to get an Uber to come and pick you up and then send you to point A to point B. But what happens if there are a lot of traffic jams? What happens if it's just across two, three lane down and traffic jams everywhere, and then it's impossible for you to get a cab? So what are you going to do? If the problem is big enough, it means that you're probably willing to pay a $10 umbrella to get, or probably grab from someone else, give the fella a $10 umbrella, give the fella a $10 and then grab the umbrella and then just run. That is a problem that is big enough. Then you're probably willing to pay. But if the problem is not big enough, you'll probably just, hey, you know what? I just sit out and wait for the rain. 5-10 minutes, the rain will subside and then I can probably just walk over. Or maybe I just grab some newspaper, cover over my head, get some plastic bag, cover over my head and go over. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that a problem is big enough to solve is only when someone is willing to pay. If someone is not willing to pay, the problem may not be big enough. Okay, having said that, this also means that a problem that you identified today here in the place that you want to sell may not be the place that eventually people want to buy. But however, you may actually bring this, okay, your product, your solutions to the problem to another market. It may actually be a potential higher potential market than where you are today. Okay, so there's actually multiple ways of looking at a problem. And most importantly is that the person who is willing to pay, are they willing to pay in the place that you are in the place of business? If it's not, then perhaps selling a solutions to someone who is not here may not be the best, okay, idea. It may actually be easier for you to have a product and sell it to some other markets that they appreciate and that they're willing to pay. So this brings me to the second question. What is the market size for your solutions? So as some of you probably will know, I've been a mentor for many years. So one of the things that I always tell others is that if you are coming from a country where your currency gets hit badly, like in the case of Malaysia now, it gets hit badly, then perhaps your market size that you want to go to, if you're going to put in the same effort, you're going to put in the same resources and everything to sell, why not sell to a place where if it's online, okay, if you can put it online, you can put it on the internet, someone is actually willing to pay the same amount of money, but in their own local currency. Example, some of the folks will say, hey, you know what? Singapore is a small market, but yeah, guess what? But Singapore currency is strong. So this means that if you are trying to sell to someone here, let's say, for example, you are coming from, say, Bangkok, you're coming from Indonesia, you're coming from Philippines or whichever. But if you are able to sell something here, let's say it's an online service, you can actually probably just sell it to one person, which is maybe 2 to 3 times more of the same effort that you're putting in. So then you have to identify, is the market size big enough for you to solve the problem also? How will you make money? I think this one is quite straightforward. Huh? If you don't have a product that nobody pay for it, if it's a problem is that it's not big enough, it means that nobody will pay for it. So if there's nobody pay for it, it means that you can't make money. Okay, this is a very simple, straightforward. So when you're thinking of a great idea, try to put these simple 3 questions together. Because these simple 3 questions will give you a very complicated answers. And usually the answers will be something that only you may be able to answer. Okay, the other one, product development. Okay, so now if you caught what I said earlier, this means that it's actually drill down. What are the features and benefits of your product? Okay, questions. Okay, some people like Apple, some people don't like Apple. Some people like Tim Cook, some people say, hey, I prefer the other guy. Okay, so sure. So now question here is that, do you identify the benefits and features of your product based on the kind of clientele that you want to target? Think about this sentence. Huh? Okay, why? Because sometimes we human, we are biased. That means you are thinking of selling a product or features, okay, a product with certain features or certain benefits to only these certain groups of target audience. Nothing wrong with it. But sometimes, because of the lack of experience that we have, we may not be able to clearly identify, okay, if that is actually even someone that's actually willing to pay. Too many times, a lot of startup founders tend to identify the wrong target audience. they think that they are the one who pay, but actually they are not. Okay, when they are not the target audience, you ended up spending a lot of money. You ended up spending a lot of resources. Okay, most importantly is that you invested in your time into targeting someone who is actually not the right target, but thinking that they are, and you invested so many of it. In the end, they don't come back. They don't come back to buy your things. They don't come back to pay for it. So what happens? Okay, let me give you a very simple example. Okay, for those with kids, you probably either you hate it or you love it, which is the McDonald's Happy Meal. Okay, so now let me ask you, when you bring your kids to walk past, okay, I mean, I stay near to a shopping mall. So every now and then, if we walk past the McDonald's and everything, it's very clear. Whenever there's Happy Meal, okay, I'm a dad coming to 50. I'm coming to 50. I got two kids. One is 12 and one is 8. So naturally, when they walk past, McDonald's, they will, hey, you know what? Since young, we know about McDonald's. Okay, even though we control what they eat and everything. Okay, we manage what they eat and everything. You can't deny the fact that Happy Meal, McDonald's did a very successful campaign throughout the whole decades, even like when I was a kid. So the thing is that when someone wants to eat a Happy Meal, who is actually the one who pay? The one who pay and the one who play and the one who use or the one who eat may actually be different people. So this also means that the features and the functions and the benefits of the product can be different, but the transaction can be same. Let me explain. Okay, if my daughter of 8, she said, hey, I want to have a Happy Meal. Because why? Her objective is probably not the burger. The objective is probably the toys, which is, of course, naturally, right? So if that is the objective, that means that the objective for her is buy a Happy Meal, eat the burgers, and then I can still play a toy. Okay, so then as a dad, I will pay for it. Okay, when I pay for it, but I may not be the one to eat the burger. Partly it's because I'm a vegetarian, so she's not. So naturally, I'm not going to eat the burger. So this means that I pay for it, okay, but she's the one who play, and she may be also the one who eat. But either way, the transaction it will be completed. Will be completed. So this also means that when you're talking about the features and the benefits of your product, may actually target different audience. Years back during the pandemic, especially when I was talking to one of the few clientels, we were actually training up some founders. So one of them was saying that, hey, you know what? In Singapore, the populations, of the number of Chinese versus the number of Malay versus the numbers of Indian versus the numbers of other races is higher. Because Singapore has a bigger, larger populations of Chinese. So, but it may not be similar in Thailand. It may not be similar in Indonesia. It may not be even in Malaysia. So one of the things that I worked out with them was like, it's very simple. If you want to target a larger group, then you probably have to bring it down into the details of who are you actually trying to target and what are the products benefits that you're going to provide. So in the end, in one of the exercises that we did, we narrowed it down to Chinese working moms with credit card. So that was the persona. Let me repeat, Chinese working moms with credit cards. Because during the pandemic, the mom who is working will spend the most time in front of a computer, same like the dad. But in terms of buying healthier food, okay, for the family, trust me, guys are probably not just not good. I myself, I'm terrible. Okay, I will probably make a lot of bad choices. Okay, but as a mom, who is going to be the one who see themselves, hey, they usually will take up the responsibility to say, hey, let me decide what are the better food, what are the fruits to bring in and everything to buy. So that was why when we pivoted the other business and say, hey guys, look into the Chinese working moms with credit cards. Because when you identify them, then you put in the features and the benefits. So saying that, hey, you know what? Kids who are not sleeping very well, or the older parents who are not sleeping very well, maybe you want to drink this, eat this. So that becomes the features and benefits of your product. Okay, so that is what I meant by product development. The next one, how will your product stand out from competitors? Okay, there's no right answer, okay, and there may not be one answer. One thing for sure is that a lot of people always think that if I have the product that stands out from competitors, I win. Nope, not necessary. Your product has to be consistently standing out from your competitors, because running a business doesn't mean that today you win, you'll win forever. In fact, you have to keep enhancing, keep improving. so that your products can be consistently standing, running on the front where your competitors are doing chasing. Okay, how do you get people? Okay, how will you get people to use a product? Okay, so this goes back to about 5-10 minutes ago when I was talking about the one who use it may not be the one to pay for it, and the one who pay for it may not necessarily be the one to eat it in the case of the McDonald's. So how will you get people to use a product? So if a product is not clearly identified your standing, then you may probably be very biased that, hey, this is probably the group of customers that I want to target. Okay, like for example, we did a workshop. There was this startup, they want to target the students. Okay, they want to target the students. So they presented to me and talked to me and about it, and I was like, okay, great idea. You're now trying to provide a service, okay, to students. Nothing wrong, fantastic idea, great ideas and everything. So my first question was, do you think the student will pay? That's all I asked. Okay, the thing is that, do you think the student will pay? Because it's very simple. If you're trying to sell to students, you have to know students has certain limitations. Okay, students have certain limitations. The law also has certain limitations. It means that the way how you advertise to kids, especially those below 16, below 18 years old, depending on which country, okay, there's a certain law. Okay, and also at the same time, their spending power may not be high. Their buying power may not be high. So question here that we always have to ask ourselves, if the spending power is not high, okay, even though you may price yourself very low, question here is that, are they going to be a repeating customer? If the price that you put it too low, you sell it to them and they only buy once, then you may not have a repeating customer. So that means the more you sell means that the more you have to advertise to them. Why? Simply put, okay, trying to target children, trying to target teenagers, young adults, it's not going to be so straightforward. There's a lot of compliance that you need to follow. So the question here is that, is it worth selling your products, okay, your main products to this group of people? If it's not, then probably you may want to put them as a side. But instead, you focus someone that is actually bigger, someone who actually has more spending power, where they will not buy for one person. Let's say, for example, you're targeting a mom, you're targeting a dad, where their household have 2 teenagers. So with that, you just need to target them once, they will buy for 2. Rather than you try to target 1 teenager, and then you look at all the compliance, and then it may not even, you may end up infringing it. So in this case, how do you actually get people to use a product? So this also means that you have to work backwards on exactly who will be the one to pay for it. The one who pay for it not necessarily have to be the one to use it. Always remember it. Next one. Okay, team building. Okay, sad to say, we human beings is very complicated creatures. Okay, today you may be happy, tomorrow you'll not be happy. Today you will be sad, tomorrow you will not be sad. So when it comes to team building, the most complicated thing is understanding each other. And there's always a lot of misunderstanding, miscommunication, things happen. So when you talk about team building, first and foremost, you have to ask yourself, what kind of team do you want to build? Okay, and realistically, what kind of team can you really build? What kind of team, let me repeat, what kind of team do you want? And realistically, what kind of team can you build? Okay, are totally 2 different things. Why? In a perfect world, everyone wants a fantastic team. Okay, you always want a fantastic team where everybody understands each other and then start rolling things out. Okay, but in the real world, can you actually afford? This is always a question that a lot of people always have to answer. Okay, if you cannot afford, whether is it giving shares, paying a salary, or hybrid, or mix of everything, okay, can you actually afford? So that is why we have to set our own expectations. So some will say, hey, you know what? I may want to get someone fresh and then train them up. Then question here will be, how good are you really? Are you really that good enough to train someone up? Because if you are good in a certain skill sets, the person that you're going to train up will probably be the person of similar skill sets with you in the end. But what in the team building that you want is that you do not want everyone to be the same like you. So when everyone is the same like you in a team, that means whatever that you guys agreed upon, everybody will agree. And this is will usually bring the downfall of a company. So you have to ask yourself, what skill sets, okay, what experience are you looking at? My suggestion will always be, if you are good in sales but bad in ops, okay, but maybe you're good in ops but bad in tech, then find someone that's actually able to complement it together. So that means you look for someone, typically for a startup, you need to have a few people. You need to have someone who can sell. You need to have someone who can build. You need to have someone who can solve problems. These are the three main ones. Okay. If you ask me, hey, Patty, how about finance? How about accounting? Yeah, sure. Good to have, but not necessary when you first started. Okay. Because why? If you're making money and your accounting is messy, you can always pay someone to clean it up. Pay someone as an accountant, sit down there and then sort it for you. Okay. Because accounting is important, but not as important if there's no sales. So you need to have someone who can actually sell. If there's someone who can't sell and all of you only know how to build, you're in trouble. Because building the best products will not bring you clients. Okay, building something and able to sell will bring you some clients. And then when you have some clients, you can actually look into, okay, where are the gaps? What are the things that we need to sort out? So when you have someone who can sell, someone who can build, and someone who can solve the problem, okay, it can be an all-rounder. And then after you build something up, then this is where you start to recruit people. You start to bring the people in. Because why? The person who sells may be able to sell a dream. The person who sells may be able to sell a positioning of the company. And that you can actually attract, okay, the talents to come in. Okay, very rare that you see a CTO, okay, unless we are talking about a very popular CTO, very rare you see someone who is actually on the back office, able to attract talents in. Unless he or she is so well versed in going out to the market to position himself, to talk about himself, then people will be attracted. Otherwise, usually it is the CEO who is standing on the stage talking about their companies, and then get interviewed, and then get the interesting people who say, hey, you know what? Your values align with mine. The thing that you are talking about, the thing that you're working with aligns with me. Then therefore, I want to join you. That is actually how you attract. Because running advertisement and running all this, it may not work because you still have to spend a lot of time to filter out. So word of mouth, just a recruitment on that level is actually usually easier. So this is actually how you build a team. So then another question here is, how do you know a team is perfect? You will never get a perfect team. Okay, you will never be. Why? Because the needs of the environment, the needs of the client changes all the time. So you may not have the best, okay? Because what? The definition of best is very, very difficult. Just like if you like to eat, okay, if I were to ask you, hey, who provides you the best fried chicken? Some will probably say KFC, some will probably say A&W, some will probably say McDonald's, or maybe other obscure brands that nobody heard about. So question here is, how do you define best? The thing is that by the time you come up with the best, okay, it may not necessarily mean that the company will actually make money. So it may actually be easier for you to attract what is right then, and then build accordingly. And don't be surprised that along the way, some folks that used to be the best, or some folks that used to be the most talented one, and along the way, as a company progresses, you may actually have people quitting. You may have actually people resigning. So it's actually quite common. Okay, how will you create a positive and productive work environment? Okay, this is quite tricky, because why? Sometimes in the company you have different generations, from your Gen Z to your Boomer to your Gen X or whatever. You put them all together. Everybody have their own baggages. Everybody have their own belief. So it's almost impossible to put everybody in together and expect everybody to work in a very cordial way. It doesn't. Okay, in the real world, there should be conflict, and there will always be conflict. But most importantly is that to get everyone in lines of understanding, say, guys, you don't have to agree with what everybody has to say, but you do have to understand that we are trying to grow the company together. Because if we are not trying to grow the company together, then 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, when everybody is upset with each other, you probably got to spend a lot of time trying to understand, hey, what the hell is going on? How come we are all running this and all running that, and nobody actually understands what is going on? So this is the part that you have to be very firm. If you are the CEO or whoever, you have to be very firm and tell everybody, guys, this is the direction of the company. You have to find a way to work with each other. And that is how team building is working. We are not asking everybody to give in to everybody, but minimally, there should be a situations where everyone should understand what is the goal of the company. And when that goal is set properly, everybody has to work together with each other to ensure that it's actually positive. Because why? Doesn't mean that today you are Gen Z, okay, you have the say of everything. Doesn't mean that today you are the boomer, you can have the say of everything. It doesn't work this way. End of the day, the CEO, you have to be the one to call the shots. Okay. Growth. Okay, this is the interesting part. What is your go-to market strategy? Okay, so here's the thing. I'm very straightforward on this. Let me just tell you. If you start this whole company as a tech guy, or you start this company as a product guy, okay, the go-to market strategy may probably not be your cup of tea. May actually be better to have someone who had that experience, who been there, done that, to tell you, hey, this is the direction, and then get everybody ideas and give suggestions, and then work towards that. Okay, why? Because if you are a tech guy, and then you've been thrown to work on the go-to market strategy, you will face a lot of difficulty, because you may probably be spending decades or years of experience working on products, working on the design, R&D and everything. And then suddenly we ask you to go into a vertical that you're not familiar with. Even you attend classes, attend courses, go for workshops, go for trainings, whatsoever, your improvement may probably be a bit up only, but it's not big enough to make an impact. But however, a lot of startups, because of lack of manpower, lack of resources, lack of to pay for people and everything, so you just assemble together. And then a few of you guys will probably come up with some marketing strategy and then roll it out. Okay, usually this will lead to disaster. The worst is if you roll it out and then you face some challenges and then it's still quite okay. What is scary is that you think that you're doing it right and you get some small results and then you start pumping in resources and then keep going into it, only to realize that, hey, you know what? We are in trouble, because everyone thought that everything is good. And then when you start pushing on it, then only to realize, oh, okay, we are in trouble, because all of us push so much that none of us actually able to see that we are in trouble. So these are the few things that you always have to understand. So your go-to market strategy is always get someone who actually knows what they are doing to be involved. Okay, how will you acquire customers? Okay, there's no answer to it. Or rather, there's no one answer to it. Okay, so let's define customers. Lots of people always think that customers means someone who pay. Yes, nothing wrong. But what happens if it's a customer who pay your partner and your partner pays you? Okay, think about it. If your solutions or your product is a B to B to C, then you need to build the relationship of you and your B and to B very, very strongly, because the other company, which is the B, is able to reach out to the C. When they have that kind of relationship, when they have that kind of bond, and it's not something that you can just acquire overnight, then it will always be best to go through intermediaries. Don't try to do it yourself. Means that you work with a partner who may be a distributor, who may be a wholesaler, who may be a channel, to go acquire the customers that they already have a relationship. So when that happens, it means that you as a company, you do not have to spend too much resources to look for the end customers, especially if you are not very familiar or not very good in terms of the marketing. If you are not good in, then look for partners who already have a kind of relationship. Then this means that you have to cut a certain margins to them, and then they go down to the ground and start running. They get sales, they get profit, they get margins and everything, they pass it to you. So this is also one way of acquiring customers. If you are someone, because in the startups, it's actually almost impossible for you to get the best team. So there may be someone who is actually very strong in marketing, but you don't have a perfect product. Or maybe you think you have a perfect product, but you do not know how to sell. So always understand, how are you going to acquire these customers? Define the customers, and define the customers if you are going to be the one to reach out to the customers, or it may actually be better for you to have intermediaries to have a customers reaching out to them. Okay. How will you scale your business? Okay. This is our forte. First and foremost, if you talk about scaling your business, there are only two things that you can look at. Number one, continue with the products that you have. Go into another market. Or extend the product that you have into maybe product 1, product 2, product 3, product 4, and then continue to sell to the same group of people. Okay, when you start selling to the same group of people, it means that the decision-making process will actually be shorter. Let me give you an example. Okay, if you go to any Shopee, any Lazada and everything, you'll realize that for those who are selling household products, okay, if you go to a site, you go to their shop, okay, you go to their brands, you realize that if they're selling household product, they will have a lot of things. To them, is that they are probably only selling to one single household decision maker. This means that you may actually go into the shop, buy something for your household to use. Let's say, you go in a household, there's a lot of things to buy. Okay, I go in to buy a kettle. And since you've given me fantastic service, since you've given me very good cashback, or you've given me a lot of good support when I ask for customer service, within half an hour, within an hour, you reply to me. So I feel comfortable. When I feel comfortable, it may not be the price alone, but because you give me the convenience, I may actually be your second or third time customer. I started from a kettle, I may end up buying a pot. If I started buying a pot, I may buy a knife, okay, a pair of knives, okay, maybe fruit juice, blender, whatever. Okay, so this means that you have one type of customers, but you sell more products. Or another type is you actually continue what you have, but you go to another market and go to another market, go to another market. Okay, let's say, for example, many years ago, I noticed one of my mate, my ex-mates, used to be with us, because a lot of them in Singapore, they work with us for 2 years, and then they can sign a contract, recontract, and whatever. So many years back, I had this mate. So she uses her money, the same usual thing. You give them salary, then they will take the salary, they go to remittance, and then they transfer the money to the back home. So she's a Filipino. So I was like, okay. So I said, okay. So I mean, that was my first time we hired a maid. And I realized that she actually spent a lot of time, especially over her weekend, one of those Sunday. She's actually spent about 1-2 hours queuing up, trying to remit some money and everything. So I told her, okay, so you are trying to do that, nothing wrong. Then I asked her about the process. So she told me she will have to transfer the money. Okay, of course, it's Sing dollar. She's transferred into peso, send it over to Philippines, and then her family will probably have to get it from a third party, and then after that, use the money to buy something. So I told her, what if you were to cut all this out? That means let you buy something for them with an e-commerce shop that is maybe based in Philippines. You make a payment here in Singapore. Okay, you buy the things that they want, and then have the thing delivered over to them. So this means that you actually save yourself quite a few things. You save yourself a bit of the remittance money. You save yourself on the safety, because there have been quite a few cases where they collected the money from a third party for whatever reasons, and then they got robbed. Okay, so I told her, maybe you can actually look into this, and maybe there are service providers, e-commerce service providers, they are more than happy to service this group of domestic helpers in this particular market, where they accept Sing dollar, but yet at the same time, they turn around with royalty, they turn around with points, they turn around with vouchers. So this means that you can actually try to have value for money. So I suggested to her, of course, naturally, she was like, I still feel safer to queue up to do it. I said nothing wrong. But so I did a bit of research, and then I found, hey, you know what? There are actually a few companies that are already doing that. For example, a couple of them actually tapped into we have, if I'm not wrong, I think the last time that I actually reached out to them just to find out, because I'm actually quite curious about business model. So they told me they are actually serving about 20,000 of the domestic helpers in Singapore alone. So just imagine, domestic helpers, 20,000. Let's say each and every one of them spends, say, 50 Sing dollar per month. 20,000 times $50. Okay, that will be the kind of transactions that e-commerce platform has. So, and then the kind of savings that they have. So this can be a business model that you can actually look at into scaling. What I'm trying to say here is that if you are the e-commerce platform providers, you don't have to just sell in the domestic market. You can actually use the same concept and sell it to the folks that are outside of the country, but buying back. So that can be one way to scale the business. Okay, challenges. Okay, so I actually mix a few things together because I don't want to just go point by point. But I think one of the few things that you always have to understand, there's always challenges running a company. Funding is always the one big issue. If you need funding to survive a business, then you're probably in the wrong business. Okay, you should take some fundings if you can, privately rather than publicly. Fund it, run it, and figure it out ASAP. Because if you keep getting funds just to survive, okay, it will not go far. Why? Because eventually the one who funds you will want to take the money back. And when you got nothing to offer, you probably end up closing down the company. Okay. And of course, another thing that always you have to understand is the market fit, which is what I mentioned just now. Are you selling to the right people? The people who buy it may not be the people who pay for it, or may not be the people who eat it. Competition, there will always be competition. So whenever you're pitching, never tell the investors that there are no competitors in the world. If there are no competitors in the world, it means that either you are the first person pioneer, which is very rare, okay, or you did not do your homework enough. Building team, not easy, because why? We are human beings, and it is common to have conflicts, and it is okay to have conflict. Sometimes we survive, sometimes we don't. And when we don't, we move on. Okay, scaling, as I mentioned earlier, not easy, but when you're ready, you got the business model all set up, then it's probably something that you want to look at. Okay, these are all the few challenges. Well, okay, so this is quite straightforward. Funding challenges. Okay, I'm not going to go in deep, but typically these are the few things. A lot of people actually look into the left side, the angel investors, VCs, and stuff like that. But you may want to consider the one in the middle, crowdfunding platform. It is getting very common for companies to actually put up their products, put up their services, and make it available for people to pre-order. And then from there, you can actually understand what are the expectations and what are people expecting from you. Do you come in to provide a product 1, product 2, product 3? And if it is, how many people are willing to pay for it, and where are they coming from? That can be something that you may want to look at. Okay, then on the right side, it's pretty standards, government grants and everything, but always take notes. Government changes their policies very fast, and grants may probably take a bit of a while to get approval. So always understand that it is with some investment that you need to put in, and usually the investment that you put in is time. Okay, so this one, quite straightforward, finding the right market fit. Okay, there's actually no 100% right or wrong. The thing here is that you always start off with customers' feedback and testing. You always have to start from there, because without identifying the right customers, you may not get the right feedback. And without getting the right feedback, testing it, not getting the results that you're not targeting, not at the targeted audience, not at the targeted customers, may actually lead you down to the right instead of to the left. Okay, take a look at this lean startup. It's a perfect, if I'm not wrong, I think this is from the author, Eric Ries, R-E-I-S or R-E-S. Take a look. Sorry, R-E-S. Yeah, Eric. Take a look. Read the book, but don't read it like a storybook. It is not a storybook. Okay, there's no special character. There's no love story in between everything. Read it like a manual. Read it like a playbook. Don't have to finish the book to start. You can just read the first few chapters and then try to come up. Hey, you know, who are the customers? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? Put that all in. Okay. And the next one, of course, getting a hang of competitions. There will always be competitors. Okay, so don't ever think that there are no competitors, because when there are no competitors, it means that something is off. Okay, first and foremost, before you even talk about competitors, you have to see yourself as, can I actually exceed what I'm trying to set myself upon? If you can set yourself upon, then you probably don't have to fear about competitors, because why? If you are demanding enough of yourself to set the certain expectations, okay, you don't have to spend too much time about competitors. Why? Because everybody has their own unique selling point. If you don't have your unique selling point, okay, like the one that I mentioned on the top right, okay, if you don't have a unique selling point and you're just offering something like what others are doing, then honestly, there's actually nothing special. Like example, like let's say if you're a shop in Lazada selling household product, okay, anyone can actually set it up and sell a household product. And if you're going to end up, hey, my pricing strategy is different because I sell cheap. Yeah, someone may come in to sell cheaper. Okay, and someone may come in to sell the cheapest. If this is the case, all of you are probably eventually going to die, but nobody's going to make a profit. So in this case, could it be better that for me to sell higher, but I give you better service? Higher in the sense that I guarantee that I can do delivery within 1 day. That means you buy it, you pay a bit more premium, but you're able to get the product today or tomorrow. Okay, versus those who say, hey, I sell it to you cheap, but it's actually a pre-order 12 weeks later or 12 days later, because you did not put it very clearly and people actually get caught into it. So that can be a differentiation in terms of the strategy. Okay. Building a solid team. Okay, nothing much for me to talk about. I think it's quite straightforward. You can get from a freelance, you can go to networking sessions, but my suggestion will always be go to networking events. Okay, if you are those that are introvert, sorry to say that, introvert, without telling anything out, nobody will know what's going on. Okay, so you may want to pair yourself out with someone who is probably someone who is a bit more outspoken, like an extrovert, so that when you guys go to a networking sessions, somebody can talk, somebody can listen, somebody can understand, and then ask questions. In all the networking sessions, okay, networking events, the very first question that I always like to ask, so what do you do? That's it. And let the fellow talk about himself. Okay, because in the networking sessions, everybody want to find out about each other. So why not just give the opportunity to the other party and say, hey, so what do you do? Then the fellow will tell you, okay. Then the second question is like, what kind of challenges do you have in your industry? Or what kind of challenges do you have in your vertical? Let the fellow talk. This is where, when the fellow talk, you do active listening. You listen to the kind of problem that he or she has. Take a mental note, okay? And of course, if you have a phone, please don't take a phone and start recording. That's inappropriate. Remember mentally, what are the problems, what are the challenges that he or she face? Okay, then stop and then move on to the second one and the third one, exactly the same questions. You'll be surprised. If you spend a good 60 to 90 minutes networking sessions, talking to different people, forget about eating. Okay, if you're there to eat, and if you can even remember what drinks are they serving, means that you're actually there for the wrong reason. So I rather you spend time spend 60, 90 minutes talking to the right people, because usually by the end of it, okay, if you spend about 5, 10, 15 minutes to each and every one of them, you'll probably be able to get a very good sources of people. And then you'll be surprised that the first person that you talk to and the third person that you talk to, maybe they can actually pair up. Because why? He or she have the problem that the other fellow may be able to fulfill. So when this happens, you link them up together. So once you link them up together, you create a value. When you create a value, and people like to work with people who have values. So if you are able to add values into the whole entire networking events, you straight away, you create a multiple effect where others will like, oh, wow, it is interesting. Huh? So this particular person got to know me, asked me about what I do, asked me about the challenges. He heard about it. And then a day later or 2 days later, he came back to me and tell me that, hey, you know, this guy may be interesting, may be able to help you to solve the problem. I was like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. And this is where how you position yourself in a networking sessions, okay? So, okay, the rest of it is quite straightforward. I don't want to go in and then explain as if as you don't know how to read. The thing about skilling, okay, other than people, other than products and process, quite a few things that we always have to understand. Technology, it must be something that you can scale, because if you cannot scale the technology, sorry to say that, it is going to be very difficult, because everything has to depend on the headquarters. So this also means that when it goes to the headquarters, and if the headquarters, which is usually the CTO or the CPO, Chief Product Officer, if they are not given enough sufficient manpower, okay, they may not be able to scale, and then they become a choking point. Okay, so always have to understand. Another thing that you can always look at into scaling is also, you can always join an incubator, or you can join an accelerator, or have mentors to help you. Okay, so with this, you get to have people who already learned that, experience that, and then summarize it and compress it and share with you. That is actually one way of learning, not just about scaling the business itself, but mentally prepared that, hey, these are the challenges that anyone who wants to go into a different markets, go into different verticals will be facing. Okay, rewarding. Well, it will be a lie if someone say, hey, you know what? I run a startup. My objective is to save the world, to save the planet Earth. Nothing wrong with that. But realistically speaking, I think if it is real, then okay, by all means say it out. If it's not, there's actually nothing wrong to tell the world that I just want to make money. I just want to provide a better life for my family. I just want to make sure that my parents don't have to work so hard. I just want to, you know, there's nothing wrong. I think the biggest thing that we always have to tell ourselves is when you're running a startup, every one of us have different reasons. And if you are genuine, people will want to help you. And there's nothing wrong to say, hey, you know, I want to make money. I want to be a millionaire, USD, in 10 years' time. Okay, nothing wrong. So I think most importantly is that you have to understand what do you really want. Okay, because if you're not truthful to what you really want, and then you come up with some hocus pocus reason saying that, yeah, I want to save planet Earth. Sure. But if your startup has nothing to do with planet Earth, how in the world are you going to save planet Earth? So it depends on how are you going to talk about it. If you tell me, hey, yeah, but Patty, I want to save the planet Earth because I'm providing fintech solutions where people don't have to do transactions, okay, using physical paper. Sure. What you're doing here is you're just helping people to have a reductions of the paper use. Okay, but the paper already being produced. So if the papers are already being produced and you are just helping the reductions, how in the world is it going to impact saving Earth immediately or impactful enough? So you always have to put down all the matrices if you're really looking into that as a reason, okay? Okay. Impact of startups. Okay, this one is quite straightforward. Nothing much, nothing to shout about. From innovation catalyst, you talk about innovations. This is something interesting. You can talk about economic impact. Some of them actually want to help, the poor, want to help the, people of color. Some of them even want to help the minority. These are the impacts also. So of course, then there are also things like your social impact, better healthcare. Like for example, some of the companies that we work with, they came from an environment where the healthcare are taken care of by the government, so they don't have to pay anything. But this is where they saw that, hey, we have quite a good system. We want to replicate it overseas. How do we do that? That can be a social impact, okay, or even educations. Okay, like for example, years back I was working with a couple of startups. They were like, hey, I want to provide educations. I want to get people to learn more. Okay, how? Using WhatsApp. So to use that, okay, why use WhatsApp? It's so strange. But you know what? WhatsApp, you don't really need a 5G. You don't need the highest technology. Okay, and it's good enough for you to actually answer questions, send multiple choice questions. They answer, they learn about things. That's good enough. You don't really need a fantastic, fanciful phone. That can be a social impact. Okay. Okay, so wrap up running a startups. I know it's only a short 60 minutes. Well, I can't be covering everything because running a startup is quite a deep. We do have workshop on that, but it's a commercial one. We do have workshops where people have to pay for it. But again, today is actually not to sell about this, but just to let you guys know, because why running a startups, it can be covered. It can be covered easily. Okay, there are a lot of workshops that have to come in. So let's say, for example, you look at the box here to do. First and foremost, you may want to look into engaging industrial experts, okay, attend events, learn from successful entrepreneurs to expand your knowledge base. The day that you think that you learn enough is probably the day you start failing, okay? Because every day, every one of us are learning new things. So it's almost impossible to get to know everything. And developing a prototype, test it with your target audience, and of course, get feedbacks. I think this is most important. But take note, if you think that developing a prototype is very important, go with it, but don't get obsessed with it, because running a prototype can only bring you so far. Okay, if you create a prototype but nobody tests on it, okay, you are going to get yourself in trouble. So develop a few iterations of the prototype and then get people to test it. But after that, you must be really willing to roll it out, even though it's not the most fantastic product. Because without having the real audience, okay, you may have a target audience, but when you don't have real paying customers, it is still considered as an audience. That's it. Okay. Point number 3, diverse talents. As I mentioned earlier, you inspire passions and everything. This is important. The thing is that you should not hire people who agree with you in everything, because if you hire someone who agrees with you in everything, most likely the 2 of you or 3 of you are probably going to hug together and die together. So it's always good to have someone who disagree, but must give you the reason. Never have someone who disagree for the sake of disagreeing, but never give you alternative. If someone don't give you alternative, but just to disagree for the sake of disagreeing, you can still hug the fella and then die together. Okay. So last, embrace challenges. It's not easy. So when running a startup, be prepared, be mentally prepared that most of the startups will fail. Okay. I know it sounds a bit crazy, but then why are you doing it? Reason is actually very simple. You must always understand your drive. If you run a startup for 10 years and it's successful, you probably don't have to work for the next 30 years. Think about it. Maybe you start work at 20 years old, okay? And you'll probably have to work until 50, 60, 70 years old. But somehow, somewhere, okay, you started 10 years of working, gain enough experience. At the age of 30 years old, you start your own startup. You struggle, okay, but you hit, let's say 10 years later, you're 40 years old, okay, you hit multiple millions. And that means that from the age of 40 onwards, all the way, end of life, you don't have to work anymore. That may be one of the reasons why you want to run the startups. There can be a lot of other things. There can be a lot of other reasons, but most importantly is you have to find out that reason yourself. Okay, thank you very much. Let me just stop sharing. Okay, now, I know it's very fast. It's 5 o'clock because we started slightly later. So I know that there may be some questions here and there. So if you do have questions, there are a few ways of doing it. Number one, quite straightforward, okay? You can type it up into the questions in the chat box, okay? Or second, you can always, if you're shy, don't switch on your video. You can always turn on your voice and then you can ask me a question. If I can answer, I'll answer you. If I can't, I'll find a way to get a better answer for you. Okay, so now let's jump into the Q&A. So any questions?